Making reads on offense. I'd like to know how the elite players make their reads. Where do you start out looking, and where do you go, and what are you looking for in order to make a pass or progress to the next read? So, how do you make your reads in Madden 17 on offense?
Let's start. Let's show you. Gun tight offset tight end. I'll come out in same spot. You come out in nickel blitz too, right? So, or come out. Yeah, that's fine. So the first thing I would say, first thing you read is that you want to read depth and numbers of corners and safeties, right? So the first thing you do is once it becomes habit, you just quickly flash your eyes and look, and then you understand. But when you first start, you should be looking at the safeties. So in this instance, let's have you actually call cover 4.
Okay.
Because it'll be easier to show that. So same formation, call cover 4. I'll come out in the same set. But it all starts again. So it all starts with reading a defense. It all starts with looking at the depth of corners and looking at the number of safeties and positioning of safeties and corners. So when you take a look at your opponent's defense, you want to first look at the free safety and strong safety. So McCourty and Harmon. If you see 2 high safeties, that's your first tell and your first read that your opponent is in some type of variety of a cover 2 deep or a cover 4 style deep defense. And what that is, that's the first clue, because if your opponent was in a cover 3 and they're not baselining, they're just calling their play organically, that safety, that one right there that falls on, he'd be up in the box, and then the middle McCourty would be in the middle of the field, and then you'd have 1 high safety. So if you see 1 high safety, then that's telling you, okay, they're in a cover 3 shell with both outside corners, the deep safety, and the deep third. And what this end up is calling is middle field open versus middle field closed, which is a different style way to determine different reads. If you have a safety in the middle of the field, can end up being open in the seams. If you have too high, the middle of the field is closed, then you want to stretch the defense horizontally, right? So that's a different way to look at it. But then from there, you want to look at the depth of the corners, because the depth of the corners then give you the next read of what your opponent is in. So in a cover 4, you can take a look at the corners. They're both deep in terms of where their positioning is. Now when you go to a cover 2, they actually are much closer than they are in a cover 4. So reset, go back to cover 4. So see the slight difference in the depth of the corners? They're about 1.5 yards further back. That's something you have to pay attention to. That's a read that you get, okay, when they're in cover 2, they're up a little closer. When they're in cover 4, they're back further. Now, if you were to play cover 2 man, you have another entirely different read. So gun tight's a bad example, but just call press. So when you're in a non-tight formation, you'll see the alignment of the corners are up in the face of the receivers, and then that tells you, well, my opponent is in some type of press coverage, which is probably not cover 2, it's probably not cover 3 or cover 4, they're probably in cover 2 man. So that's the beginning stages of reading the defense. Now, your opponent has a lot of tools at their disposal to disguise everything, and to mess all that up. But I would say get into a habit of starting to read the safeties, read the positioning of the corners. That's going to tell you a lot about what your opponent's doing. And then when you get a read on that and you're okay, well, I think it's going to be cover 2, that then says, okay, I think it's cover 2. Well, I want to throw, I'm going to flood the defense with a table route to the halfback, a vertical to Sanu, and a route to Tammy. And then I want to throw, the corner route if it gets open downfield. It's got sack coverage there. But once you read that and get a baseline understanding of what your opponent's in, then that tells you where to go with the ball after the snap of the ball, after you make a read of where guys are going.
All right, so that's pre-snap. So after the snap, so let's kind of go through one play.
Sure.
Now, what makes this really difficult is before the snap, it's always the same. It's always one thing or a different. It's like every coverage is the same. But after the snap, what you have is different reads for different play and then different coverage. So show us just this one play.
Okay.
This one play right here, you're going to have a different pre-snap read. It's going to change the hot routes you make, because if you think it's one defense, you're going to do one thing. If you think it's man, you're going to go do different things or go to a different play. If it's blitz, you're going to have to pick up your protections. So once you read the defense, you change your play. But when you actually snap the ball, what do you do?
When I snap the ball, so let's first do it this way, right? So if I thought it was man, I would put Sanu on a slant and motion him out, and then I would put the far left receiver on an out. So the reason I do that is because it gives me 4 routes that beat man-to-man.
Right.
So I'd have the quick out to Gabriel that beats man, the motion slant beats man, and then the 2 corners, Jones and Tandy, they all beat man. So now I have 4 routes on one play that beat man. So now I know this play absolutely destroys man. So here's what ends up happening though. Okay, that's my man setup, but you're actually in cover 2. All right, well, if you're in cover 2, then I need to know where I need to go with the ball next.
Right.
I can wait on the Sanu route as he breaks over the middle of the field, or if the cloud flat drifts too far, I can then hot read throw to the underneath flat. But that needs to be a read that you make instantly. Like, you can't throw that route late. Like, if you go back to that same defense, the cover 2. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to motion him out. So if you stay there, I'm going to motion Sanu out. Now, if I am slow with my read, I'm like, oh well, like if I'm slow and then I deliver the ball, I could get sacked, or I'm going to throw late to the flat, and it's not going to be a good situation.
Never want to throw late in the flat.
Never want to throw late in the flat. So you need to read it right away. Like, okay, I see that corner drifting away, and really the way like I've done it over the years is like I go into practice mode and I would be like, okay, I know on that defense, that flat zone defender and against this formation with the same setup, the same motion, okay, let's watch this one defender. I would start on one guy. I go, okay, snap of the ball, he's in a cloud flat. I know that because I put him in that, right? What does he do against the setup? Okay, he drifts, he slides, and he drops away. Okay, that's what I would look for,
right.
Okay? Now put him in a hard flat, right? So then what I would do is I'd do the same thing. I'd leave the defense entirely the same way, put him in a hard flat, and then I would motion the guy out, do this. I come back, and I would, chuck the ball away, and then I go back into instant replay. And I say, okay, let's determine what a hard flat looks like. And I just keep doing this up and down all the routes, all the zone coverages, right? Okay, so I see when it was a cloud flat, he went like backwards and he went horizontally a little bit. Now hard flat, hard flat, his first step is in, and then he kind of drifts a little bit, but then he breaks back down again.
Right.
So now you need to now remember those things. Like, that's all repetition, that's all practice, that's all like snap, read it, see it, know it, throw it, right? Like, there's no other way to make you like learn it other than like that's the way it's done. Then you need to put the repetitions in, and then once you see that, like, there's a very distinct drop in terms of the coverage of when you go out and look at the difference between this and the hard flat. Like, he's stepping completely horizontally, and then his next step is backwards, and he's about 6 yards backwards compared to the hard flat. So those are all the subtle things that you need to pay attention to. Like, and then if he was in a deep zone, like, put him in a deep zone. What does he do, right? Put him in cover 2 and put him in a deep zone, and then you got to see, okay, he's in a deep zone. Because if it's cover 3, right? Like, what happens? Oh, look at that! Look how far he drifts. So you need to then start, like, you hone in on individual people, and the way you like perfect your craft is you do that with every guy on the field.
Right.
And so then you start learning all the different combinations. Like, okay, if my opponent does a hook here, does a buzz here, man's up here,
because
you learn
here's
it
what's
all.
bad, right? If you just learn a play, and this is, I know the beginning part was pretty easy. Oh, all right, safeties, okay, I could learn that. Then before the snap, you have the protection based off blitzers. But then after the snap, we just gave one example of 1 or 2 routes against 1 or 2 zones, and there's 10 zones, and
that's one
15
setup.
hot routes, and that's one setup. So we might have overwhelmed some people.
Sure. Yeah, sure, I did.
But the most important thing about reads is this. That Julio Jones play, we might have showed you that earlier, that corner route, and you watch the show and you go, I'm logging in after Twim, and I'm throwing a dot to Julio Jones. So you snap the ball and you just wait for Julio Jones. You don't do anything like Julio. Oh man, he's finally covered. Oh man, I shouldn't have gone there. But you just missed 3 other reads. So what you really need to do on this play is go, okay, so I go Coleman, nope, Sanu, nope, Julio, nope. And then you're making 3 actual reads on the play.
Right.
So that's personally why I like a scrambling quarterback, because if I get to my 4th read, I'm out.
Yeah, the other thing too about reads is, like, you need to have 5 routes in theory that all break at different times.
Right.
So, like, each of these routes, for example, they get open at different timing. You never want routes
What's going to break first, the Gabriel or the Coleman?
The Coleman is your instant read. If the Coleman's open, you throw it.
Okay.
So if the Coleman's open, you throw it. You also then have your eyes on Sanu. But then, like, here's the thing, right? This is the part that's hard to explain or hard to. You need to put a lot of repetition in. I know when I can throw Gabriel, unless they do some type of crazy adjustment.
Right.
I never even have to look at Gabriel because I can read the right side. Oh, he's in soft squat. Okay, cool. Or cloud flat. I then just know, if he's cloud flat, I can throw that. I can throw that quick out. Okay, so here's the flip side of that. Now go play the cover 2, play hard flats. Cover 2, hard flats.
Okay.
So if you play cover 2 hard flats, I go on this side, I see that step in, I know I can't throw that, but guess what? I know I can throw.
Right.
So like,
so you did go through 3 reads right there, but super fast.
I went through 3 reads by just reading that one defender on the right side. Now, there's a million other things that come into play in terms of, okay, is he cross-banding? Is he usering it? Is that Mel Blount over there? Is that Deion Sanders that's on the zone? Like, there's so many other things that then come into play. Like, ratings matter. So if you have a Deion Sanders or you have a Mel Blount over there, he's going to play that zone better. He's going to have a bigger window. He'll drop back better. He'll drop back quicker. Like, if you have a guy cross-manned, he'll get over there quicker and defend a Z-spot better. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but as you were saying, like, you can make a read on one side of the field. Like, you have Gabriel and Jones. Like, those routes. Like, if I know you're in a hard flat, I know I can throw the Jones unless you make another adjustment. Okay, you didn't throw that. I know I then can go under, like...
I would also say like this.
It gets complex.
I would say after the snap, you want to count to 4 as like a musical beat. Ready? Hear me out on this. Put Sanu on a drag.
Okay.
Sanu is either a 1 or a 3.
Sure.
Gabriel's always a 2. So 1, 2, 3. So Sanu, you can either throw it to him at 1 or at 3. You're not really gonna throw him to him at 2.
Right.
You're definitely gonna not throw it to him at 4. He's not gonna be open. Julio's basically a 4.
Julio's a 4. Tammy's a 4.
Coleman's a 1.
See, Julio and Tammy could be a 4 and like 6, because you could throw them as they make their first break, and then you could also throw them as they get like just to the sideline and possession catch it.
But you're rarely gonna get the 6. You gotta do some blocking to get the 6. So like, give me it again. Ready? So you should be able to throw to one guy at each.
Coleman's
beat.
a 1. Coleman's a 1. Sanu's a 1.
1.
No. Okay.
2.
No.
3.
Right.
Bang. So you got to step up in the pocket. You got to block somebody if you're going to need 4.
We understand that.
And four is not. I'm not saying seconds. I'm saying count.
Right. Correct. Your progression.
So 1, 2, 3, 4. Bang. So like, that's what it's about. And if you ever get to 5, either throw the ball away or go up the middle. Or if they're really not rushing anybody, then to have time to look for playmaker. But those are things you got to look for. That's why I like drags, because you can throw them on the 1 or you can throw them on the 3.
Drag is the best route in football.
That's why C route's good, because they develop super late.
Drags always get open.
Streak. Like if you go to that streaks play, the PA quick. Like this is more of a.
It's more of a spot play.
It's more of a spot play. It's not really a full read play. It's like
you run it because you know what they're doing.
Kind of always throwing on the 2.
Yeah.
But you're throwing in different areas.
Right.
So if all the routes have the same timing, then they need to not be in the same area.
It's more of a tactic than it is like running routes. It's like a tactic.
More than a read play.
It's not a read play. It's just like it's a field play. Okay, I know they're doing this, and then that type of defense gives this up. Is the idea behind it. So.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. I would say that's probably that's like the thing, like when you start talking about like competitive Madden at a very high level, and like people are like, oh, you only run one play. Like when someone makes one small adjustment, if it's just put Sanu on it in, like it can change like the entire version of like the route progression, everything.
Correct.
And like people are making multiple reads on all the plays.
That probably puts Sanu at a 2 instead of the 1 or the 3, right? So. And that's the difference. That cross might change the timing of the crossman. It might change the timing of the delay. Like he won't delay.
Right. Like this, I could call this. Like for example, here's a great example. I could call this play right here. This is a setup of this play that I've seen a lot of people use. Right. It's the same play, and in all intents and purposes, it's like run very like. There's not much different about it. Like you saw the table to Coleman. You have a high-low read to Tammy and Coleman. But then you also now creating a backside high-low read with Jones and Sanu and Gabriel. Like you're actually creating a deeper flood. Like you know how we in gun bunch tight end we say that's like the best way to attack that deep corner in the game. Mm-hmm. This setup with Sanu and Gabriel, like Gabriel on the vertical, Sanu on the drag, like this is a great way that gives you the same like idea as that gun bunch, like a really deep corner that gets open. And so while you might be at home and you're not like you don't necessarily see like you see the same play, you see the same routes, but like you'll see this setup, and this is just such a different way to run it, and it has a whole different purpose of like the reason it's being run.
Because the in route, it looks like it's going in the same area of the field, but it gets there at a different time.
Timing's different.
Right.
I run the vertical here because I want the vertical to pull the deep safeties away so that the corner opens up, and I want the drag to keep the underneath buzz zone
And then you
at
got to
bay.
block the halfback so you can get more time.
You get more time in the pocket, step up in the pocket,
Right.
and then you deliver the strike.
Right.
So it gets that same tender area as
that
like a
can't be
bunch.
your only read on the play.
That can't be your only read.
Because otherwise, it's probably not going to be open all that much. You might hit that 1 out of 5, 1 out of 7, right?
Not even that, but your Tammy's your hot read. If you get caught off guard like man, or if you get in trouble, like you could chuck it to him.
You can always throw the drag over the 3.
The thing you need to know most important is the drag. That drag like is probably your real number 1 read.
Right.
So listen, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good question. Hopefully that
Great
helps
question.
you read, break down defenses. Some of the strategies that we have on this channel, like the Broncos playbook, there's a free guide that we put out on offense. It helps simplify things for you because it says, hey, if you see this, you're going to throw the bubble screen. That's your read on the play. It's a simple read. Or you run the dive. That's your second read. You're making the read before the snap instead of after, because making the read after the snap can be very difficult. So go through those. They're kind of like starter offenses, beginner offenses, until you become, expert status. Like, these plays are hard to run. They take hundreds of reps, thousands of reps, seeing different defenses, getting different timings, like figuring everything out. You'll learn it, but you do see the best players tend to run this style of offense. You saw Spot Me Please do it really well at the Classic, so start to see if you can explore it, and now you hopefully have a little bit of insight as to how they do it.